Excited to welcome Vic Joseph to the show for the first time. You can catch him calling the action during NXT every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern on the CW, and on March 11th, leading the booth for NXT Roadblock, emanating live from the theater at Madison Square Garden. And I got to tell you, NXT has been traveling to some pretty unique venues over the last 6 months, but New York City, in the shadow of the world's most famous arena, that is a huge opportunity for this brand, especially where it is headed at this juncture. I'm sure there were probably some CW motivations behind all these location shifts, but how have you seen these changes impact the program? Because you're front and center there every week.
You know what? I do want to give a lot of credit to the CW. I mean, I've been very excited about everything we've been able to be a part of. I mean, just the CW in itself to put us at the forefront. They have ACC football, Pac-12 football. They got basketball. They got Live Golf. They have Xfinity NASCAR series along with us. So to be a part of all that, and I like to say it this way, from the ground up, it's very rare now in professional wrestling that you can say I'm began at the ground floor and help be part of the building process. And everyone in NXT right now, from the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels to head coach Matt Bloom to the head writer Johnny Russo to the men and the women that are there every single Tuesday, to myself, to Booker, to Corey, to the referees, to the production team, everybody was there from the ground floor and have helped build this. So I have been super excited every single week, whether it was Chicago, whether it was St. Louis, Los Angeles, Cincinnati, we're going to New York. I mean, it's been absolutely unbelievable. And to see how this has grown every single week, sometimes you sit back and you go, man, we just did that. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, we did this too. And it's only been a few months. It's only been since October, and we're now entering into March of 25. But it seems like we've been doing it for so long with the CW because it's been absolutely flawless that it every single week seems that there's something new there. Like, oh, man, that was really cool. Going to New York City, going to the theater of Madison Square Garden to be there in that atmosphere, in that market with those fans. And the fan base in New York, they're going to come out and they're going to be on their toes. They're going to be screaming. They're going to be loud. They're going to be passionate. I can't think anything better. And that's what also excites me is that I am excited every single week when that red light goes on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people now that look at NXT and they say, you know what? Raw may have talents that I'm more familiar with that excite me. This brand may have this. But NXT on a week-to-week basis, it is the show that I actively want to watch, and it's the one that flies by the fastest.
Well, I thank you for that, by the way. So I appreciate that. I see the NXT hat sitting there in the background. Great, by the way, Florida Gators background. If some people are going to watch this, they're not Gators fans. Just the passion you have for a sports team, being from Cleveland, I can relate to this.
Of course, for sure.
But when it comes to NXT at its foundation, it's always been about growth. You say you've watched it. It's like it excites you every single week. It's one you love to watch. It's must-see TV. You get that grassroots. And I kind of tie it into NASCAR. Yeah. Like if you go into NASCAR, you just can't jump in and say, oh, I like, this racer. I like this driver if they're already at the top. There's no fun in that. You want to start at the bottom, open wheel. You want to go to, if they were in the truck series, like when they first turned that engine on, and that's what you get at NXT. You want to talk about it related to the ACC and Pac-12 on the CW. It's that college player that you started to follow because he came to the Gators. Yep. And you watched his rise. And now he's going to NXT and you're seeing how his trajectory could be. And he's starting to build. And then he shows up on a Raw and a SmackDown. I mean, you get a chance to see somebody begin on LFG, for instance, on Legends and Future Greats, and make their way all the way to WrestleMania. I mean, you were part of their journey. There's something extra about that.
Oh, definitely. And such a huge portion of the WWE main roster right now is made up of people who either got their start in NXT or at least did a lot of work in NXT, getting themselves ready to get those opportunities on Raw, SmackDown, and then WrestleMania. What I loved at the beginning, by the way, was that you didn't just say Shawn Michaels, you said the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, because we're of a similar age, and that's connected. You don't say Steve Austin, you say Stone Cold Steve.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, right.
It doesn't matter that is your boss, and he's a vice president of the company. He's the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
He's also, and I've said this, if people have followed, the interviews that I've done, he's my hero. I mean, he is my childhood hero. And you can look into it however you want. Like I I wanted to become a WWE personality because of Shawn Michaels. I watched every week because of Shawn Michaels. My first VHS tape, yes, dating myself here. The first VHS tape I ever bought was Royal Rumble 95. And I remember getting it and putting it in and watching it. And like, I'll never be able to really poetically speak about how much he means to me on a personal level. He was there with me when my dad was sick and my dad passed. He's been there for the ups and the downs of my WWE career. And to be there and have his trust every single Tuesday and to joke and to be able to bounce ideas off, I mean, it's that in itself is a dream come true, because he was the quintessential superstar that made me want to get into this business. And now he's reaching back, and now he's helping this next generation and the generations. And that just shows you how much the man loves this business, how much he cares about this business. And the same can be said for Triple H. For everything that they put into it when they don't need to, they give it everything they have so that I can learn, so that this new superstar in NXT can learn, so that the person on Raw or SmackDown can take that next step, whether it's a Gunther or a Jey Uso or an LA Knight or a Tiffany Stratton, and we can keep throwing names out. And it's just amazing to see that they go from someone you watch on TV and you're a fan of, to then they become your boss, to then they become your mentor, and then you start to build a friendship.
It's funny that you mentioned that stuff with Shawn, because I can't flip my camera around. And now that you mentioned all the Florida Gator stuff behind me, I'm realizing I should have like a wrestling side and a Florida side. That way I can differentiate. But the one piece of wrestling memorabilia I have in this office is a piece of the mat from WrestleMania 12 signed by Shawn. It's one of those things that they signed in the main event. He won, boyhood dream realized, the whole deal.
Anaheim, California, Sean Brett.
Yeah, it was exceptional. What's it like?
What else do you have in there?
I have a championship belt.
Okay. I have a pretty cool
as well.
I got a pretty cool piece of memorabilia.
What you got?
When I was working with Beth Phoenix,
okay,
I just happened, and my wife McKenzie said, "You cannot ask Beth." I said, "Honey, I'm doing it."
Yeah.
But she's sitting there. Wade Barrett's over here making fun of me, and Beth's to my left. I said, "Beth, out of curiosity, if your husband is like ever going through his like yesteryear box or whatever phrase you want to give it, and
sure,
you're trying to make room in a closet or an attic or a storage area,
right,
and he's going to toss something, you mind throwing that in a bag and, you know, just bringing it over to me?" And she kind of looked at me funny and goes, "Yeah, I'll ask." My wife said, "I told you so." That was weird.
Yeah.
Her last day, the show ends, she hands me a bag and she said, "This is for you." And I opened it up, and it was Edge's elbow pads from WrestleMania, or from Royal Rumble when he won at number 1, which would have been 21.
Sure.
21 maybe. He signed one Edge, and then he wrote me a nice personalized message because I've known him for a number of years. So that's the coolest piece of memorabilia I have, are those Edge elbow pads in the shadow box.
Yeah, I mean, you know, getting the unique wrestler memorabilia is certainly special. This was WWE produced and signed, and it's in a nice little plaque. But no, it's a great thing to have. So, you know, look, let's talk a little bit about how you started, right? Because I think some people understand, perhaps not everyone. You had an extensive sports radio broadcasting career, which is interesting to me because I literally work in sports. And that was in Cleveland. You were dipping your toe into the wrestling business at the same time.
Yeah.
What was that like, being known locally in a pretty damn big market, by the way, and then showing up to these indie shows, basically doing something completely different on the side?
Well, before I got to, so I was with CBS Sports,
right?
And I was based out of Cleveland. I mean, they probably could have sent me anywhere they wanted to, but luckily I was able to go to my hometown and do radio, do TV. I was on the Browns network for a number of years. Being there and being with CBS, got to cover a number of NBA finals. I got to cover World Series. I was an update anchor for the Olympics. So there was that cool side of things. Before that, I was doing affiliate work with the Cincinnati Reds, doing some baseball, but at the same time doing regional ESPN, local radio, you name it, for Division II, Division I, NCAA tournament games. You know, I remember doing a Michigan State, Boise State football game, an Ohio State basketball game for Westwood One, and then going and covering the local high school team that if I sneezed, the whole city would have felt the mist.
Right.
So that's how small it was to get to Cleveland. And then all that was done to get here. Like, I never had an idea in my mind, to be perfectly honest with you, that going to Cleveland and being with CBS Sports and covering all these things, like, look, I interviewed Kobe, I interviewed LeBron. That was never the highlight for me. That's never where I was like, oh my gosh, I've made it. Getting here is what I wanted to do. And when you get to a certain point, you have to look at it and go, man, how do I get there? Well, you start showing up at all these local indie events, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. And to give credit where credit is due is actually Johnny Gargano, who I sent an email to a promoter at the time, and Johnny read it and goes, why are we not bringing this guy in? Like, he could help. So Johnny Gargano actually helped me get booked on my very first indie event ever.
That's funny because he was wrestling in the indies like 10 years before you were doing the heavy Cleveland sports radio. And I was going to ask if you had any interaction with him. So that's pretty.
That was it. That was the very first one. And so we've obviously had a very close relationship. He's like a brother to me. I was at his wedding. Our kids play around when we get them together. We're over with each other every single Sunday for Browns games, whether it's at his house or if it's in the man shed on my property. But he answered the very first email and got me booked on that very first show, and really was the one who was like, well, if this is what you want to do, dude, you kind of have to show up and go experience different things. And that led me to doing a few more localized shows just by showing up. And then I actually got into a car accident. This was a long time ago. And it was a pretty bad one. A trailer off a truck broke and came over the median and hit the car I was in head on. I actually, ironically, if you give me a second, I know this is probably the power of...
I got all the time in the world. So this is your time.
I don't know if this photo will show up perfectly, but I'd want to show it to you. I don't have it. Let's see if we can get to this camera here.
Yeah, that works.
So there was that. And then I don't know if you can see that hole.
Oh, yeah. Right in the middle of your forehead. Yep.
So it was pretty bad. I had to go to speech therapy to really learn how to talk. Like, it was a while.
How old were you?
I'm 39 now. It had to have been 2011.
Okay.
So over a decade ago. But the point of the story was, to get to your question, was I got in that car accident. I couldn't do anything. Well, out of all those indies, I ended up meeting a guy named Ben Boone. Ben Palicki is his real name. He's out of Cleveland, and he would do shows in Northwest Ohio. He'd do shows also Southern Michigan, central part of Ohio. And one of the shows that we went on together, there was an ECW legend, a WWE legend, a TNA Hall of Famer by the name of Rhino. And I sat with him and I started picking his brain. And he said, "Well, you're really interested in this." And I said, I am. Like, I want to learn about it. He said, "Well, you jump in the car with me whenever you get a chance." Rhino and I have become so close. He's actually the godfather of my kids.
Oh, interesting.
But because of him, I started going not just in Cleveland. I started going all through Michigan. I'm going to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I'm going in to Windsor, Ontario, Canada. I'm going all around the country. He introduced me to Tommy Dreamer. And Tommy Dreamer in his kitchen said, "Do you want to call House of Hardcore tonight?" The very first show, which is where I met Edge, to bring it back to that piece of memorabilia. And Tommy Dreamer put me on his first show, and I did however many of those there were. But Tommy would sit there and would break down what I needed to do to succeed in wrestling, how it was different than sports, but how it was the same as sports. So learning from those two guys, getting an opportunity from Johnny, was helping me realize my dream. And in 2016, I think it was 2016, CBS gave me a new contract. They said, "Hey, we want to bring you back in." And I kind of looked at them and said, "No, I want to see if I can make it to the WWE. I want to give myself a year." And midway through that year, I got a call from Michael Cole, and all the stuff I had done, I had stayed in contact with him through emails, just doing my due diligence to stay on the forefront of his mind. And I got signed and started in January of 17.
Yep.
And I've been here ever since. So CBS and all the sports stuff was great. That's a career in itself. But the goal at the end of the day was to get here. The lifelong goal I have is to call the main event of WrestleMania. And that's still there. I'm still passionate about it. I love this business. I wasn't born into it, but I fell in love with it. That I feel that I'm that distant cousin that's kind of like a brother, in terms of family. And I love every single week that I get to go out there, whether it's a Tuesday, whether it's Netflix on Monday, whether it's going and filling in for Joe Tess on SmackDown. Like, this is a dream come true for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great story. And by the way, we are successfully building the Wikipedia profile for you right now. So all those gaps that I couldn't find, we're getting those in. But so the end goal was always WWE play-by-play.
Always the dream.
To me, and this is someone who, when I say that I've done it, I've not for wrestling, I've done play-by-play twice in my entire life. I believe it is one of the hardest jobs in sports and one of the hardest jobs in broadcasting. And that is for all the fans, and myself included, even these days, sit at home on their couch and you're listening to someone call an NFL game or WrestleMania or whatever the case might be. Why aren't they mentioning this? How can't they say this? Why didn't they call this move? Your goal was not to join WWE and there's, let me be very clear, nothing wrong with being a backstage interviewer or a manager or any other role. Your goal was to do what I believe is the toughest job in wrestling broadcasting. How did you kind of, I don't want to say earn those chops, but how did you work on the wrestling play-by-play aspect that is so vastly different from the sports play-by-play aspect? Or perhaps it's not, and I'm wrong about that.
No, I mean, there is different similarities to it. My father-in-law, my stepfather, before he passed away, always would tell me that I used to talk like a clapper on a duck's ass, a little.
Yeah.
He said, your mouth is either going to make you or it's going to break you, because all I ever did was either make-believe football in the front yard, make-believe basketball in the front yard,
Gotcha.
make-believe baseball in the front yard, or I was playing with my Hasbro action figures doing, wrestling commentating. Getting to work with Tommy, though, with House of Hardcore, he really gave me a good foundation. If you think about building a house, he gave me the foundation. He built the walls.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't until I got here and I got to learn from Michael Cole, where he was like, nope, look at this. You see this in the distance. Add this in there. Use a descriptive word. How can we enhance this? How can you say this but also promote something? It's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
But how do you find your own voice? How do you stay the way you are, because we hired you for a reason? And so you throw all those things into a pot and you try to figure it out. And a lot of it is baptism by fire.
Yep.
You're going to, in anything, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from it. The next growth in my broadcasting here was actually when Joe Tessitore came on, when Lee Fitting came aboard as well. Because Joe Tess sat with me and was like, man, you do such a great job of doing this and doing that. And I go, well, I just call it basketball. And then it clicked. How can I call wrestling the same way I call basketball, still tell a story, but start calling the moves and try to appease everything? And if you think you've called basketball, correct, or am I wrong?
No, I've done play-by-play 2 times in my entire life. Once was in high school, once was in college. And I said, look, I can talk 2 hours on a podcast nonstop. I can do that, but I can't do that and then simultaneously call plays and read ads. And that's why I'm thinking it's one of the most difficult jobs, if not the most difficult job in sports broadcasting. But go ahead.
When you think about basketball, you're like ball on the right wing, bounce pass to the baseline, overhead toss, top of the key, screen to the left, going down the left lane, stops the block, back out. Like, you're calling where they're at. Well, why can't I incorporate that into wrestling? Right foot into the face, big back elbow, off the top, big splash, hooks the left leg, kick out. Like, I can do that. Okay. Well, and I learned that from Joe Tessitore. He said, try to enhance on that. Okay, well, how can I do what Michael Cole wants to do and promote something? Well, I could try to tie in a move to a move. I could try to tie in a story to what we saw earlier in the night. Is it a championship match to start NXT? Did we have a championship match to end Raw? How can I tie those things in? Yeah, you're going to miss some things. For sure. I see the social media posts when it comes to me, but I always go, I never want to take away from the talent. Also, they're putting their bodies on the line. They're doing a great set of work. I never want to take away from that, but I always go, if I were to ask you right now, who is your favorite professional wrestler of all time?
I would say probably Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
What are the top 3 things you remember about Shawn Michaels?
The way he has the charisma in the ring, basically what everything he does. Obviously, Sweet Chin Music is up there. Sweet Chin Music. And The flip over the ropes. When he runs into the corner, gets the Irish whip, and he flips himself over.
You didn't tell me one match.
Right.
And that's why I always come back to, it's what moments are we creating? What are we going to remember from this? If you see somebody do a Hurricane Rana from the top rope to back into the ring, and you see it, every single week, I can tell stories at that point.
Sure.
But then you saw the people like, oh, you didn't call the Hurricane Rana out. But you're not remembering that I did it 4 of the last 10 weeks. You're just thinking about here and now. So there's all these different things to do. It's just, how can you tie it in? And, I thank you for saying that it's the hardest thing to do in sports, in terms of broadcasting. But I will tell you that I've learned so much from Michael Cole. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. He's the greatest of all time. The way that he's been able to change as we've changed, not only as a company, but as a society, and the way we view things, it's been effortlessly. Yeah. And I look at him not to become the next Michael Cole, to become the very first Vic Joseph. But if you're a quarterback, why would you not watch tape of Tom Brady? Why would you not watch tape of Pat Mahomes? And if you were a basketball player, why would you not be watching tape of LeBron James or Kobe or Michael Jordan? Why would you not study the greats that came before you? Yeah. And try to pick a few things, mold them into your own. That's what I've never understood when people go, oh, he's a Michael Cole clone, or it's like, okay, but who's your favorite sports team? Would you not want them to be looking at, did you not study the great? Like, that's what has never made sense to me, which is also unique of what professional wrestling is. But as time goes on, you create your own habits, just like this podcast. You can do it now, turn the thing on, and you can go. The same thing with broadcasting. And you know what? I believe you'd be a very good broadcaster, by the way.
I appreciate that. I mean, we're 705 episodes in, so this I know how to do now. Now it's, what's that next challenge, eventually down the line. So I saw a clip from an interview you did recently when you referred to your time calling Raw as a failure. And I guess that plays from the standpoint that you're not still doing it, right? But candidly, it sounded like you were being a little bit unfair to yourself given the circumstances of the situation, let's call it. So I want to dig into that just a little bit with you. Oh. You get hired in the middle of 2017, as you mentioned, didn't have much what I would say is major league experience when it comes to wrestling, right? You get the opportunities on 205 Live, NXT UK, extremely solid on both. And then within 2 years, you're thrown onto Raw with Jerry the King Lawler and at first Dio Madden. And I remember being thrilled that you were getting the opportunity. But candidly, I was kind of dumbfounded at the trio, and that's nothing against either of those guys. It's just, if you were randomly picking names out of a hat, like, it felt like that of people who have done commentary, the King, and had never have, at least, on the main roster, Dio,
right,
might come up with that group. How did that trio come together? And were you guys given any time to hash out your chemistry, or were you just thrown straight onto television?
No, Dio, well, if you go back and actually watch, Dio Madden joined me on 205 Live.
Okay.
For a few months. So he and I were working together. We'd spend time in the Performance Center working together. King, I think I had a few phone conversations with, but look, Jerry Lawler's Jerry Lawler. Just like Booker T's Booker T. They're legends, they're greats, they're Hall of Famers. You just let them do them, and you mold yourself to however you need to, so that, you can make them successful. And so when we went out there, for the first Raw, yes, that was the very first time all three of us had sat and worked together in tandem. But no, Dio and I had worked, I want to say, for a few minutes. It's ironic that we're having this interview talking about Roadblock at the Theater Madison Square Garden, because Dio and I, along with Aiden English, actually called 205 Live in Madison Square Garden the last time that we did TV all together there.
Now that you're actually saying it, it's kind of coming back to my mind. 205 Live back then, and certainly no offense to the show, it was very exciting. The matches were great. It's one of those things where, like, you watched it, but it was extra content. You don't necessarily remember all the details, but I'm sorry. Please keep going.
No, so we had chances to work together, but I say it's a failure because, one, if it wasn't, I'd still be there, to what your point was. But man, I thought I knew so much. I need to scratch the surface here. And I still see Paul Heyman, when I go up to Raw or I go to SmackDown to this day, and I still look him in the eye and I shake his hand and I say, I will make you proud, because he was the one who gave me that opportunity. And so I feel that I let Paul Heyman down. I never wanted to let Paul Heyman down. I never wanted to let the fans down, but the decision was made. I don't know the exact details of why that decision was made, but the decision was made. And I had to have that failure really, you might have to bleep me here. It was a kick in the ass to me because I was going home and I was just sitting, cool, show up next Monday. Bad, wrong attitude. And that's something now, not even for myself, that I tell Blake Howard, who's in WWE, or any interviewers here, or new talent that gets signed, that NIL athlete, or someone who's in NXT. When you think you made it, you have not made it. And I thought I had made it. And that was the wrong attitude to have. And that's why I'm so thankful, going back to Shawn and Triple H, to giving me this opportunity, because frankly, I could have been let go. You know, right after that point when I was taken off, COVID hit, the pandemic hit, and, you know, all gloves are off, all bets are off at that point. And they hung on to me because they saw something in me. And I need to pay it back to Shawn. I need to pay it back to Hunter. I need to pay it back to Michael Cole, all those guys that trusted me. And I had the wrong attitude at that point. That's why now I watch every Raw and I break down what's happening. I write notes. How can I get that into Tuesday? And then I'm there, obviously, Tuesday. If I wasn't, it'd be a different issue. But I'm there every Tuesday, and then I'm watching Friday. And I'm saying, okay, what can I take from Friday to bring it into next Tuesday? Or what on Tuesday can I incorporate into Friday? Or do we have a PLE coming up? How can I promote that? And at that point in my career, when I was doing Raw, I was not thinking about any of that. I was playing checkers when I should have been playing chess. That's what I mean by it was a failure. I failed those who gave me the opportunity. I failed the fans. I failed myself, that I wasn't doing what I needed to do. And
but if you're saying that, you're saying you feel like you got a fair shake with that.
Yeah, I was given the opportunity. I don't think anything that happens in the WWE, if you're given the ball, you run with it. You either run with it and you score, or you fumble it. Gotcha. It's on us as the performers. It's on us as the individuals to make the most out of what's given. If you got 3 minutes of TV time, you better make that the best damn 3 minutes you got. That's on us. You know, I had Raw for a few months. Yeah, it was a short time, but I also had, you can go back and watch Survivor Series. It was Brock versus Rey Mysterio. I'll still put that call up against any call I've ever had. But then you go, one call doesn't make a career. Sure. And if you go to the Raws in between, oh man, that's cringeworthy. I got to scratch my head on that. So I do think I was given a fair shake because I was given the opportunity. I didn't make the most of that opportunity. And now making the most of every single week that I have now in NXT to build that trust back up with whomever I lost trust with. And maybe I didn't lose trust with anybody, and that includes the fans. Because I want to make every Tuesday or every time Vic Joseph is on a Raw or a SmackDown or a PLE, I want you guys to know that the person sitting there doesn't take that seat for granted. That the partners I'm working with, I don't take them for granted. The matches I don't take for granted. And the dream that I have that I'm living, I don't take for granted. Because at the end of the day, I am not just a WWE commentator. I'm a professional wrestling fan, first and foremost.
No, it makes sense. From an outsider's perspective, and certainly we don't know the machinations of everything that goes on internally, but I would look at it from the standpoint of, you had a different person in your ear then than you do now, certainly. And I imagine that Shawn Michaels is quite different in production than Vince McMahon was previously. And, you know, the team kept changing, and there were a lot of things that appeared to happen that were beyond your control. So I think it's simultaneously fair to say, yeah, I failed, it didn't work. But at the same time, perhaps I could have been put in a better situation to succeed.
Well, I'll throw something to you here too. I always talk about learning experiences. Right? I think every day we're learning, especially in the world of professional wrestling with everything that's changing, all these different moving pieces. You take Vic Joseph back then, you talk about the teams. First it was Dio and Lawler. Then it was just me and Jerry Lawler.
Right.
Then it was me, Jerry Lawler, Samoa Joe. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to go, oh, wait a minute, I got to work differently with this guy, but still incorporate him. But wait a minute, now I just have him, but now I have two people to work with, so I got to get each guy in the same. So I got to talk. Now I came to NXT. I had Beth and I had Wade. People forget Beth wasn't here. Beth was in Carolina at her home. Yep. So when we were watching a match live, you heard the slam on the mat, but then a second and a half later, you heard the slam in your ear. You had to call the match a half second behind, even though everything that's going on around you, you have to block that out while still. So there's all these different things. I needed to fail to succeed, because when I failed there, I go, okay, here's how I have to do it the next time.
Gotcha.
And then I got a chance to do Wade, Beth's not there. Well, now Beth's here. Now it's just me and Wade. Now it's me and it's Booker T. And now it's me, Booker T, and Corey Graves.
Yep.
So I had to fail at that to learn how to succeed. That's the biggest thing I took away from my time on Raw was I needed that failure first for the wake-up call, and then second to be able to be who I am now, to go back to what we talked about in terms of broadcasting, to find my voice and find my style.
Makes a lot of sense. And it's a really good lesson for people out there who get an opportunity and it doesn't work out and they say, well, I guess I'm going to go do something else, be a car salesman, sell insurance, whatever the case. If you keep at it, especially if you get an opportunity to stay where you are, you ultimately have that opportunity to succeed. And, for someone like you were putting in 10,000 hours before you even got hired by WWE. So then now you have 10,000 hours with WWE and you're just doubling up on it. As far as I'm concerned, and I think a lot of fans would agree, there's been two true voices of NXT in the show's history. One was Mauro Ranallo. The other now is Vic Joseph. And like they say in The Big Lebowski, both of you were the man for your time and place. Mauro called the black and gold NXT exactly the way it needed to be called. Your enthusiasm and overall style, I think, was badly needed just to sell that 2.0 switch and now to lead this hybrid between the two that kind of exists now. I know fans feel that way. Do you hold that same perspective when it comes to NXT? This is exactly where I'm supposed to be, and it's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
100%. 2.0 was a learning experience. It goes back to being given that opportunity to succeed. Okay, well, I remember one day we got a phone call and said, hey, drop the suit. You're now going to wear attire you would wear when you
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I did not dress, just for everybody to know, I did not dress myself. So when people say, man, you looked hip, man, that was a great jacket. My wife, McKenzie, she's the one who dressed me. She went out and she did the shopping. She put the outfits together. She still puts my suits together. So anytime I look good in something, it's because of her. I'm
fair enough too, because she should be doing that. And you should, right?
I should be able to have picked up from her. She's the most fashionable person that I know, but yeah, she put everything together for me to make sure I looked hip and cool, because look, at the end of the day, I just wore Cleveland sports t-shirts and sit in the shed and play video games and watch sports. So, that was my life. But to get back to your question, yeah, I do feel that it was the perfect spot, because I was able to take what I had learned, the lessons I had learned from Raw, the time away that I had, and all the thinking I could do to reprogram myself, so to speak, and how to do it the right way, along with a new infused enthusiasm to want to do this and not be lackadaisical in the job, as we talk about, to work with Wade, to work with Beth. I have to make this work. And finding my own voice. I don't think I had my own voice on Raw or even 205 Live. I thought I started to find that voice in 2.0. Wade and I joke all the time. It's usually him being mad at me. He got my master's degree. He helped me earn my master's degree. Working with Booker T, Booker has helped me earn my doctorate.
Yeah.
Because then I couldn't handle all the graphics. I couldn't handle all these moving parts because all my brain is moving a mile a minute. Now it's like, cool, what do you want to do? I got it.
Yeah.
And I'm calling the shots, at the table. I'm confident that when we sit down, that's my table. We're going to follow what I want to do. I'm going to work with Shawn on what his vision is. I'm going to work with the writer on what we need to get done. The producer is going to say, we need to get these elements in the show. Great. Put it on a piece of paper. Booker, here's what we're going to do. Boom, 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 boom. And that was when he and I started. And Booker was only supposed to be here like 3 months. I don't know if that's ever been said. Booker was only supposed to be here from the time he came in till December. And he and I looked at each other and were like, dude, this is fun.
Yeah.
Booker's like, I'm coming back for another year. And then he said, I'm coming back for another year. We're going on 3 years together. It's supposed to be 3 months. We're going on 3 years because we just have such a good time with each other. I just posted a photo. Booker and I met at a gas station, WrestleMania 25. And I took a photo with him. To now sitting there working with him every single week is mind-boggling to me. But NXT is where I needed to be because it's allowed me to learn so much. And it's allowed me to cultivate my own personality on air, the way I do things on air, and to get the fan base used to it. That now when you slide me into a SmackDown, because Joe Tess might have a boxing event or a football event, I'm not looking around. Oh my, what are we doing? I sit down. I'm confident. All right, here's what we're gonna do.
It was you and Wade back together. It was supernatural. Yeah.
And I think that's part of the magic. And I think that's when I say I'm playing checkers. I really need to be playing chess. That's me going, yeah, now you can put me on any show you want, but my home is NXT.
Has your enjoyment of this role in NXT manifested itself in more patience than you might have otherwise believed you would have to go back to Raw or SmackDown, call the pay-per-view, the premium live events for the main roster, or no?
I think being able to be here in the WWE, to me, doesn't matter what show you put me on. I just have a great time being with the WWE. I have a great time calling the action of the WWE product, because the WWE to me isn't what it was when you and I were growing up. Right. We now have Raw. It's on Netflix, global. We have NXT, grassroots, getting an opportunity on the CW, which opens up a whole new avenue. We got SmackDown on USA, which that's like the home for us growing up. Was every week it was USA. So nothing's really changed there, but these PLEs all over the country, what we're doing over in Europe, where we're reaching now. LFG, Evolve just came out on Tubi recently. All these different things that come out, there's so much that I don't think I want to be tied down to just being like, you're the NXT guy. I just want to be the WWE guy. I want them to call me and say, this is selfish of me, is call me, hey, we need you to fill in on Raw. Cool. Need you to fill in on SmackDown. Cool. NXT is my home. Yep. NXT is where I want to be every single week. But with that being said, I am looking at it going, man, all those Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes matches, all those Tiffany Stratton matches, all the Gunther, matches.
I've done that before. I know them, yeah.
Trick's going to be, a major player down the line. Man, I'd love to call that at WrestleMania. My end game is WrestleMania. I want to call the main event of WrestleMania. However I get there, however I can help this company continue to grow, I don't think there is one show that I could be tied down to. Yeah, NXT is my home. I never want to leave NXT. I'm going to do as many shows as I possibly can. But I think the day of looking at it and going, oh, that's this guy. Mm-hmm. That's this guy. I think those, in my opinion, are flattening out, that all of us are so interchangeable that we can go in and look at the roster. People say, oh, NXT called up to the main roster. Bayley wanted to come back to NXT. Grayson Waller wanted to come back to NXT. I think it's the perception of NXT for the fan base. But when you got talent from Raw and SmackDown, they're like, yeah, I'll go do something with NXT. It elevates the brand, where it's starting to, rise up. So I look at it across the board and go, however you can use me in the WWE, awesome. I want to be a voice of the fans because I still am a fan. NXT, yeah, 100% my home. Love it. But if you need me somewhere else, cool, let's go do that. I'm all game for it. But as long as you're going to have me in NXT, as long as NXT is good, as long as Shawn Michaels wants me, I want to stay in that seat.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned Book a couple minutes ago. Let's kind of go back to him. He's actually a controversial figure when it comes to wrestling commentary. Fans are divided on his style. Some, they don't like that he's out there having a lot of fun, maybe not as serious or focused as they prefer. Some just loved your duo with Wade Barrett or your trio with Beth Phoenix so much that anyone else was objectionable at the beginning. Others, and now I'm speaking for myself, not only find Booker to be arguably the most entertaining color commentator out there, but he is someone who adds a ton of life to the broadcast, especially given your chemistry together. Sometimes you're like an old married couple. Sometimes you're like best friends. The dynamic is incredible. And I think it especially works for NXT specifically, given the youth of the talent and the type of show that you guys are trying to put on.
Sure.
Was there an adjustment period to working with him? And do you see him as someone who makes your job challenging in a positive way, or actually makes it easier because you're just out there shooting the shit?
I'm going to go to the first part of the question. Yes, it was challenging because I came into this having worked with Wade, Beth, Raw, Waller, Deal Madden, Aiden English. And it was, this is the way. This is how we're doing things. This is how it needs to be done. And there were 3 people that gave me some great advice. When I started on 205 Live, John Cena, I introduced myself to him for the first time, said, I'm going to watch tonight. And I thought to myself, there's no way in hell John Cena, of all people, is going to sit back, not just watch, but listen and then critique.
Yeah.
Sure as hell, man. I was walking out. John, just want to say it was nice meeting you. Hold on a second. And he gave me critique. If you know the stories, can't go wrong. Didn't get that until I came back to NXT with Wade and Beth. That was part of the lackadaisical part of, I know what's going on, and I had to fail to succeed. Cody Rhodes said, hey, we're going with Booker. Let Booker be Booker. Just let him be Booker T. And I didn't know how to do that because I was so used to Wade, Beth. Hey, here's the dynamic we have straight down the middle. Lee Fitting came in with his team. Brian Fadden, by the way, I have to give him a shout out as well. They came in and were just like, hey, try something new. Just be different. You take all that, you put it in the pot, you mix it up, and you cook it, and you look at this meal, and you go, what am I going to do? Mm-hmm. And so the first few weeks, a little timid, and then he and I just had a conversation, and it was like, you know what, dude? Let's just go out there and be two guys and just call some wrestling. Because Shawn and Triple H always said, just be two friends on the couch. That's what we look to be. People don't realize that. If you're sitting at home and you're watching the show and I don't like this. Well, I like this. Well, I don't like, why would they do? He looks this way. That's really what we're doing. We're just two friends sitting on a couch watching professional wrestling. We are who you are at home, just sitting there in a WWE, molded way of doing things. Mm-hmm. And once we figured that formula out, that's why he said, I'm coming back for another year because this is too fun. You can't have the Vic and Booker style. It's not what you see on Raw and SmackDown, but also SmackDown isn't what you hear on Raw. Right. In Raw isn't what you hear. It's three different styles, and that's what I think is so unique and so beautiful about these three unique teams. As yes, it's still professional wrestling, but it's three different soundtracks, and each soundtrack is different. And yeah, you may not like classical music, but you may like that one thing by Beethoven because you really like pop music, but I don't really like pop music, except I do like NSYNC, but I'm more of a hard rock guy. But I don't like hard rock, but I like everybody has their own piece of, I do like that a little bit, but I like this more. That's cool. Fine. My daughter loves vanilla ice cream. I want some peanut butter in my ice cream. My son just wants chocolate. We all like ice cream. 3 different flavors. Right. My wife doesn't like ice cream at all. She wants cookie. Like it's all dessert at the end of the day. I will also say this, and this is no BS. This is not blowing smoke. Of everything I've done, we talked about my start in broadcasting, the NBA Finals, covering the World Series, Browns, CBS, and all of it. Booker T is the best broadcast partner I've ever had. And I put that on my father. That is not a company line. Mm-hmm. Booker T is the best broadcast partner I've ever had because he helped me find who I was. And that's why I say Wade Barrett got my master's degree. He got me to this point. Wade Barrett got my confidence back that I could do this job. Beth Phoenix as well, that I could do this job. But working with Booker T has showed me that, hey, I really could do this job. And he helped me go from here to here. And it's because of him that I have all the confidence in the world, because if something like you said, well, there's graphics and there's this and there's that. Go back and watch Raw. I had to split all that up. I couldn't handle it. Now I have to handle it. And it's because of Booker. And Booker has pushed me and tested me and has pushed me to become better, but also lighten up. At the end of the day, it's professional wrestling. It's supposed to be fun. He's out here freestyling the Sexy Red one week, standing up, and I'm trying to get into a wrestling match. Like, how do you do that? You better learn.
Yeah.
And that's why I let Book be Book. It's only helped me become better.
Yeah, that's exactly what I noticed. He wants to have fun, and he's going to make you have fun with him. One way or another, it's going to happen. So you guys were running hot. Corey Graves has now hopped into the booth. And after that first week, I'd say it's been pretty seamless ever since. Not really surprising because Corey's great. You guys have chemistry before. And now he had a lot of experience coming in doing both jobs, color commentating, and of course the play-by-play. Given you guys have been friends for a while, how big of a personal hill do you feel like he needed to overcome given the situation that led him back to NXT?
I think he had to have a new set of eyes and, take a deep breath. And something we've always talked about, we used to travel in the car together, was, hey, man, it'd be cool to call the shows together one day. And I think once he and I had the talk, like, dude, this is what we've always talked about.
Yeah.
He was kind of like, yeah, you're right. And, I always wear a bow tie every WrestleMania. It's a velour bow tie. People forget. And I think I've told this story one time, but Corey Graves gave me that as a gift at my very first WrestleMania. So we have that personal connection of it. But I think the difficulty for Corey, and I think this is where you start to see that seamless transition, is now he doesn't have to do as much. Now he can take a deep breath. Now he can take a step back and understand that it is three of us, three unique individuals, three distinct personalities for one goal, for one show. And so it's been getting better each and every week. And it's only going to get better. I mean, all three of us are just stoked to be in New York on Tuesday, Theater of Madison Square Garden. I mean, it's a great card. It's a great opportunity. And it's a chance for not only the brand, but us as a broadcast team to take that next step together and start looking at our first WrestleMania weekend in Las Vegas.
So something that Corey does really well that I've always felt important is call out the names of wrestlers' signature moves. So not drop kick or this or that, but trick shot, pop rocks, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
What I've noticed, and I just want to get your perspective on this because I think our listeners would kill me because I talk about it all the time on the show. And if I have Vic Joseph on and I don't ask him, they'd be upset. Is with the developmental talent, and certainly they are developing, okay? But even some who are more experienced, who have been on TV for a year, 2 years, they don't necessarily have as many special names for their moves as you will see on the main roster and elsewhere. I've always been of the belief the more intimate an audience can become with an individual, the more likely they are to grab onto that person.
Sure.
You calling out trick shot when Trick hits his finisher is far different than look at Trick hitting that pump knee and getting the win, right? They're two different things. So is that something, do you have any input in terms of, hey, I love this move that you do, you got to give it a name? Is there a reason why perhaps there's a little bit more reluctance to do it, or it's a slower process? I just want to get your perspective on that in totality.
Well, Corey's really good about calling out those moves. And if you go back to, now he's been on Raw and SmackDown,
Sure.
For a decade, WrestleManias, the guys and women he's been calling, their stuff has been so cemented.
Sure.
Right? Natural selection for Charlotte Flair in the figure eight, a choke slam and a tombstone for The Undertaker. I mean, he gets to talk about John Cena and Cody Rhodes. Like, they have all these, moves that have been cemented.
Mm.
When you come to NXT and you take a look, again, grassroots starting, Obafemi, I think, has had less than 40 matches.
It's unbelievable.
What really can you cement in 40 matches? And who's to say something's not going to change?
Right.
Because he's still trying to find his footing. So then when you start throwing in 10 different moves for somebody, and then all of a sudden they're going to change your whole thing because they're still building on who they are. So you're just going to scrap that. Now you as a viewer go, well, they don't do this anymore. Well, they're never going to do that again.
Right.
So you're remembering something that isn't what the future might hold for them. So I think that's something too that a lot of fans, when they watch, they don't think about. Nigel McGuinness told me a long time ago, why name every move? Because if you don't win with it, what's the point? So if you hit a suplex and you call it the super duper, he hit the super duper. Well, what does it mean?
Right.
They didn't win with it. You're just naming a different move to name a different move. It's not unique. It's a suplex. I learned that from Nigel. And Nigel was always one that people would come up to him. And again, that was during our UK days. And they say, hey, I want to do this. I want to call it this. And you go, are you winning with it? And they go, no. Oh, I put a name on it, because then you're just burying yourself, because your special thing you do doesn't win. So what makes it special?
It's a good point, because one of the things that bothers many fans today is that Sami Zayn doesn't win matches with the Blue Thunder Bomb. And they're like, it's his best move. It's named, and he never wins with it. And, they don't dislike the Huluva kick necessarily, but they're angry that he doesn't win with that other move. Perhaps if it never had a special name, they wouldn't feel that way. Or if you didn't use it as a finisher previously.
So I think a lot of people get caught in their own mind of like, well, they need to do this and that, and then they work themselves into that's actually what's supposed to happen, and that's not even close to what's supposed to. I use Bray Wyatt as a great example. When he came out and was working out, people were up in arms. Remember how angry people were? how mad the fan base was. Well, if you would have just taken a timeout, taken a deep breath, that turned into The Fiend, which now is iconic.
Right.
But you want to jump to a conclusion at the beginning of things. Just let it play out. I mean, I wouldn't want to watch a game if you told me, hey, it's the Gators and Ohio State national championship. Gators lose on a last-second field goal. Well, then what's the point of being excited
right
the whole day before the game, excited the day of the game, sitting there with your gear on with a party? You wouldn't do it.
Right.
Chill out. Just sit back. Entertainment. Like that's what it is. And so that's why I don't know if I can say I have a hand in doing that. I can see why we don't do it that way. I don't even know if that makes sense to some people, but it's like if you're gonna go out there and name 15 things, we're just naming 15 things.
But do you find that it does enhance, especially once they develop further along? Do you find that it does enhance the buy-in though?
Well, now you look at Sami Zayn, he's won with the Blue Thunder Bomb. Now when he hits it, you go, oh, this could be it. Oh man, I thought he would have won with that little kick. Oh my God, he did win. It's part of the magic. The Undertaker had the choke slam, the tombstone, the last ride, the Hell's Gate. It becomes that if you have 4 or 5 different things that can set up a victory, sure, it puts you on the edge of your seat during a match. But in NXT, you're still developing good traits. You're still developing good habits. You're still building on who you are. You know, Obafemi has the fall from grace. It's all he needs right now. Right. 6 months from now, maybe something different. Trick, 6 months from now, maybe something different. Roxanne Perez, who to me is one of the greatest women to ever come through NXT, has pop rocks, right? She also started winning with a crossface.
Yep.
Okay, well, now we're building that to the next step, that it can take the next thing. If we give you the answers on day one, well, that's part of the grassroots. That's why I maybe look at it differently, where I look at it and go, you can start the process with this person, and you can come along with their journey of the ups and the downs, the wins and the losses, the milestones, the moveset, the this and the that. It's part of the process. And that's what also makes NXT so special to me.
So I think a lot of fans celebrated recently when your wife showed back up at TNA Wrestling. And then obviously now with this working relationship, you guys are kind of back in the same professional ecosystem, I guess you could say.
Way of putting it.
But a lot of us were pretty bummed and frankly surprised, of course, when she was released by WWE. I know this is a fine line to walk. I get it. Did it come as much of a shock to you guys as it did to us? And how tough was it for you to like go back into work after that happened? Because that's a very unique situation that a lot of people don't experience in their work life.
Sure. I'll be honest about it. I was completely caught off guard. I remember the morning. And what was interesting is my father passed away in October.
Oh, sorry.
She was fired the first week of December.
Yeah.
So it was like boom, boom, hit. So yeah, it completely caught me off guard. Completely caught her off guard, caught some people in the company off guard as well. But a business decision was made. And the only thing we could do is go about it with grace. And now she's back in TNA. She's back home to the promotion she wanted to go back to. She had the opportunity to do so. There is this partnership, this working relationship, which is absolutely unbelievable as well. And, I pinch myself now that I get to call Hardy boys matches, which I never thought I would have done.
I was going to ask you about that like an hour ago, but yeah.
But I'm so proud of her. And I go back to 3 people. I go back to Triple H. I go back to Shawn, and I go back, Shawn Michaels, I go back to Michael Cole. All 3 reached out. All 3 talked to us. All 3 talked to us on a personal level. I don't want to share those conversations, obviously, but that is why, to me, WWE is home for me, and it's different. It's because it's a different vibe. It's a different feel. For her, she said in interviews, she understood. It is what it is. She still loves everybody here. She still talks to Shawn. She, every time I see Hunter, he goes, "Hey, how's she doing?" Her daughter is really into Hunter's daughter is very into fashion, and McKenzie saw her at a fashion show one time and then handed me some jewelry to give to her. Awesome. So there's still that, family atmosphere there. There's no hard feelings. There is the partnership, and I'm so proud of what she's been able to do over the last year with her business, with TNA, and that's one of those things where it's never say never.
Yep.
Anything can happen with this partnership. Anything can happen a year from now, and there's no ill towards anybody from her towards WWE. She even just told me today, she goes, hey, I'd love to make it to stand and deliver when I'm out in Vegas, just to say hi to Shawn and give him a hug. And, that's great. I don't know how many other corporate places have that sort of emotional connection, to your point.
No, definitely. So you've given me a ton of your time, extremely generous, greatly appreciate it. I'll get you out of here on this. 2 quick questions for you.
Okay.
Cleveland native, you reported on the Browns, clearly a Cleveland Browns fan. I can assume that. You can answer this yes or no, or you can expound on it. It's your choice. Okay. Was the Deshaun Watson deal the worst
terrible thing ever in sports in Cleveland history? I hate every second of it. I was excited for maybe like 2 seconds and then was like, oh my God. Now, if I could, I'd be banging my head on this table right now here in front of Johnny, and I talk about it every single day. We got to they got to figure this out. I mean, Johnny and I have been doing mock drafts and sending them to each other for about the last 3 months. And he's got his guy. I got my guy. Neither of us have Deshaun Watson as the guy.
I feel like there's an odd number of Browns fans in WWE. It's you guys, Miz. I think there's a couple others too.
There's Ryan Ward. Ryan Ward's a writer. Myself, Johnny, Miz, a couple of the camera crew guys are Browns fans. But yeah, there's certainly a few of us.
In a tough existence, I would talk shit, but I'm a Dolphins fan, so my life is not much better when it comes to the NFL. Here's the second question. Okay. Is there any type that is better than Stadium Mustard?
Any better? Elaborate on that.
Stadium Mustard, Indians games, or excuse me.
I thought you were talking about, because in Cleveland, there's the ballpark, dogs with the Stadium Mustard. I like a good brown mustard on my hot dog, a good stadium dog. I think it's called Berkman's Stadium Mustard.
I think so. Yeah.
And I love it. I would do that all day. I just actually got into yellow mustard on a burger.
I can't support that. That is...
I don't know what it was.
It's like ketchup on a hot dog. Don't tell me you do ketchup on a hot dog. That would be problematic.
I don't do hot dogs as much as I used to. I do a good cheddar jalapeno smoked sausage or bratwurst. My go-to for brown Sundays is a smash burger on my little, I guess you'd call it Blackstone griddle.
Yeah, that's not
bad. Got me a big Blackstone. She knows I love to grill and all that. I do the smash burger. I do 2 slices of cheese. I double stack burger, another 2 slices of cheese, a hot honey
on
top, and then jalapenos.
Okay, but no yellow mustard on that.
I just recently got into it, and I got to have a taste for it, to be frank. But if it was my go-to, I'd say no yellow mustard. On a hot dog, I always do put Stadium Mustard. No ketchup, because the ketchup always comes out big, but definitely Stadium Mustard. The brown, not yellow, right? Brown Stadium Mustard.
First job I had out of college, one of the people I worked with shipped in Stadium Mustard from Cleveland, bottles and bottles. I had enough for probably a couple of years. Haven't had it since, but it's one of those things where once you have it, you get it. And
it is Bartman's, isn't it?
I think there's maybe 2 brands that are similar, and maybe that's one of them. I'm not totally sure. I'm not from there, so you would certainly know better than me.
Now I'm looking it up, because now I'm sorry to take your time on this.
No, it's fine. It was the last question.
Bertman's.
That's it.
Stadium Mustard. That is the only. So when I go to a game, I will put that on. If it's at, I'll even do pretzel into it.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, don't like yellow mustard on the pretzel. It's got to be either that or some sort of beer cheese.
That is 1,000%. We're on the same page there.
Yeah,
it has to be either beer cheese or a spicy mustard of some kind on a pretzel. Yeah, yellow does not belong there. So, Vic, great having you on the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. Again, you can catch him calling the action of NXT every single Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, on the CW in the United States, Netflix internationally. March 11th, he will be leading the booth. NXT Roadblock, emanating live from the theater at Madison Square Garden. Not just your favorite NXT superstars. The Hardy Boys in attendance, moves, some TNA wrestling involvement, and a huge women's match, of course, with Stephanie Vicaire and Julia. Cannot wait for that, Vic.
Just for clarification, by the way, it is not a unification match.
I'm so glad you said that. Okay.
I never said it was a unification match. I said they were going to title versus title. One woman is walking out with all the gold. So let me just put this on your show.
I'm going to have to call you on that, though. I think you accidentally...
I don't think I said it's a unification. I think I said it's not a unification match. It is title versus title.
If you did, the not the was low and like didn't pick up, the same.
Probably could have been Booker making a noise. It probably went over it. So let's just clarify this now.
Yeah.
It's Stephanie McCare. It is Julia. The biggest women's match in NXT history. It is title versus title. One woman will leave as the women's and North American women's champion. One woman will have
2 titles.
both titles.
I'll make sure.
If I did misspoke, which I don't think I did, because I've known it's not a unification match. If I did say it was a unification match because I was trying to smack Booker from making noises or I was hitting Corey for some reason, then I apologize. But it is not a unification match.
Heard, and I will make sure we clip that separately even from the rest of this interview. That way it gets out there. Vic Joseph.
Don't clip in, though, that I said that I guarantee I didn't say it because now I'm not 100% sure you told me on the fact that maybe I did.
It's a chance you did. But
if you go back and you watch the graphic stack, if you go back and watch the whole show.
Yeah, it says title 4 times.
If I made a mistake once, I know I didn't make it 3 times. I called 3 different things. So if I hit 2 out of 3, if you're batting 667 in baseball, you're an all-star. You're an all-timer.
Yeah.
Now, if I did it all 3 times and my batting stance is 0, call me out on it. But I'm pretty sure if I did it once, I didn't do it 3 times.
667, you're a Hall of Famer. You're not an all-star.
That's right. If I made the mistake once, I certainly didn't make it the entire show.
It was one time. And yes, we will focus on the clarification. Vic Joseph, best of luck at NXT Roadblock. Hope to speak to you again sometime down the road.
Hey, thank you very much for the time.